segue, if I can, a little bit away from politics. I want to talk, if we can, because this applies to everybody. Is I have a passion. I've been a car manager for the last kind of 40 years and stuff, and I was trained by Toyota. I worked for a number of manufacturers: Toyota, Honda, Saturn. I worked in the RV business and stuff. I was a finance guy, but I was trained by Toyota in the past about managing the generations. The generations at the time, and I'm talking 20 years ago. It was really a big issue coming up as far as the different age groups. Right now, in talk 2024, it's a generation. It's an era. We're going to have six generations in the workplace, the same workplace. It applies to the military and stuff because we're dealing with the generations. If you go from the top, you're talking about lots of our seniors, the greatest generation, World War II generation. And we're talking the baby boomers, of course, like me, yours truly. And we're talking Gen X, the Generation X's, which I say are kind of running the world right now. Those are kids in their 40s and 50s running by the seat of their pants, Gen X. And then, of course, you have the millennials. And most millennials right now in their 30s. And down below that, you got younger than that, you got Gen Z, Generation Z, which are basically 15, 16 years old to 25. And goodness gracious, I've been talking about the Alpha generation for 10, 15 years here, but they were just babies. The Alpha generation is now turning 15, 16 years old. And the key with managing the generations, and think about this, whether it's education, whether it's the military, whatever, when you have generations. The key that Toyota taught us, and I've published a lot about this, is that if you don't know the difference between each generation, because each is differently motivated, and each of them you have to manage differently. Different reward systems, ways of managing and stuff. And I've literally, and there's lots on my YouTube channel, which is Greg Meakin YouTube. But I've talked extensively about managing the generations because it's a fluid thing. As I say, the little Gen Zs, the Alpha, I used to call them the Alpha babies because they were in diapers. Now they're 15, 16 years old entering the workplace. And I've been watching them for a long time, and it's still, the jury's out. We don't know how these generations are going to turn out. But in looking to, especially the youngers, the Gen Zs and the Alphas, these are the folks, these are the kids that we're really concerned about, of course, which direction are they going to take. Millennials and even younger get a bad reputation in a lot of ways, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, that they maybe don't have the work ethic of their previous generations, and they're motivated differently, they're yada, yada. But I think there's also two sides of that, and two sides of every generation, including the Zs and the Alphas. And that's what I've kind of been analyzing. And if anyone, honestly, on stuff like that, anyone, including in the chat, that wants to chit chat about the generations and how different they are and how different it is to manage them, feel free to opine, as they say. Let me go just a quick example on that, though. Quick example. Let's just talk Generation X for a second. Generation X, I have a son, Gen X, who's turned 44 years old. Goodness, Tanner, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But a Gen X, I say jokingly that Generation X right now, because they used to be the little youngsters, remember? They're running the world right now. They're, for the most part, in their 40s and 50s. When I say they're running the world, and for the most part, some of the major positions in business and everything else, they're running the home fronts. Barack Obama was our first Gen X president. So new era. And Gen X, but it's very, very interesting. I love working with Gen X. I'm even dialing it into saying there's a difference between Gen X males and Gen X females. Maybe that's for a future article or radio show down the road. But Gen X, they're an amazing generation in that I call them the cynical generation. They're in their 40s and the 50s, and they have witnessed the implosion of sacred institutions, whether it's banks, major corporations, blue chip corporations, just the media. They watch the implosion of really their world as they knew it with older folks, because they were raised by their boomer parents or grandparents, senior grandparents. And I find them, as I say, the cynical generation. They were not raised from birth with technology. That's what's kind of cool. Most Gen Xers were not introduced till technology. If you remember, going back till they were probably anywhere from 8 years old to maybe early teens, and they immersed themselves in technology, and for the most part, they're completely versed and fluent, muscle memory on technology. However, they weren't raised with it. So what I do say is, as far as Gen X goes, I see them having a responsibility. And I had a long chat with Sheriff Lamb about this, Sheriff Mark Lamb. His theory at the time was that Gen X dropped the ball a little bit. Gen X dropped the ball in passing on the culture, as I say, 1950s handshake world, the culture of our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, onto the younger generations, including millennials and Zs. There was a disconnect there, as I say. That was a first for me, hearing Sheriff Lamb saying that Gen X could have done a better job communicating to the younger generations. That said, what do we all do right now is to be aware that the different age groups are going to be really impacting our world. Again, Gen Z, millennials and Gen Z are going to be the leaders real soon in politics. So it's good to pay attention to it. It's good to get research and knowledge about it. There's lots of stuff out there in the generations, but I always do like to bring that up because and there's so much to talk about there. My favorite one was how to motivate. I love this with Toyota. How to motivate older folks, seniors and older boomers. And it was so wonderful with employees in the workplace. There are a lot of seniors now that are in the workplace, whether it's shuttle drivers or goodness greeters at Walmart. There's a story on that. But there's seniors in the workplace. And the most fun thing about working with seniors is they were so easy to work with. They showed up on time, usually early. They took direction. They did their job wonderfully, and they didn't want anything in return but just an attaboy, a pat on the back, or just them wanting to feel comfortable within the business, almost like a family thing and stuff. So it was wonderful managing older folks like that, and it's important to know the difference because you can't manage a senior generation person like a Gen Z. So again, show for another day, full show, whatever. This could be forever and ever, but I do encourage feedback about the generations. What are the challenges for everyone? The military dealing with generations, HR issues, of business out there, even local communities and stuff. We all got multi-generations involved. So again, be aware and see what we can learn about each other. I think there's too much preaching to the choir these days. We've heard it's a cliche, but it's so true. With how divided the world's gotten now, with Republican, Democrats, whatever, divisive. I really do think that we're losing our ability to just kind of understand each other a little bit more. And again, understand that I keep coming back to the generations, but boy, it is sure nice when you get to see multi-generations coming together like a good old Sunday Thanksgiving dinner in the old days with grandma, where the whole family gets together. And once again, you come to common ground on things you agree with. I think people agree with 80% of stuff in the world. We love family. We love our safety and health and all that stuff. It's just the 20% big mouths on both sides that get us so divided.